We're live. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to those of you who are not familiar. This is all about CityClips, North Florida, covering everything that's happening with business and tech. I'm super excited to have Thomas Puketza here on today to talk about his journey in event management and being a coach for executives, leaders, and running TEDx talks. So thank you so much for hopping on today.
Well, thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
So I'm going to do a quick intro, of course, and then we'll dive in and talk more about all the things. So Thomas Puketza is an experienced event producer, speaker coach, and TEDx speaker based in the Gainesville metro area. He's the owner and executive director of Finale Events, a company specializing in corporate event management, hybrid and digital event consultation, speech and presentation, coaching, and event hosting. Puketza's background in theater has shaped his approach to event production and speaker coaching, emphasizing creativity, resilience, and the collaborative nature of bringing events to life. So thank you for being on. So let's talk about what got you into this business. It's not the easiest business to run.
No, and so it's kind of funny. When you're in college to do theater, or at least when I was, we were all talking about, like, we were just sort of willfully ignoring having to get a job after we graduated, and then all of a sudden it was like, how do I do this? And so getting a job in some sort of creative capacity, it was the dream. It was like, oh my God, I'm working in this field. And so I had managed to get a job with the Phillips Center for Performing Arts at the University of Florida as a stage manager. And my joke there is that, I was like a roadie that didn't go anywhere. The shows would come to us. I would help run the local part of the crew that would set them up and knock them down. And we were doing an event for ourselves, a literal fundraising event for ourselves. Now, I graduated in 2006, and this was right before the pandemic. So I had been out for a while, and it finally occurred to me here, wait a minute, this is the same skill set. like I could just do this and get paid adult money, because it's not that the pay was bad at the Phillips Center. It's just that that's always the challenge. It's not just getting work, it's getting work that you can support a family with. Because when I graduated college, I could get all the $50 a week jobs I wanted, but that's not going to pay your rent. So and that was right before the pandemic. And so as soon as we all started socially isolating, that's when I put the money down to form an actual company that brings people together. So yeah. And so it's been a fun learning curve ever since. So.
Yeah. And I've noticed that, obviously sometimes in terms of crisis with the economy and things like that, there is a trend where people actually end up starting their business or doing something completely different. So it was risky for you in a sense, still keep pressing on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when the world sort of I'm dating myself, but I use the term a lot, shaking the Etch-a-Sketch, which for those way younger than me, the Etch-a-Sketch was this thing with two knobs on it, and you can draw pictures on it. And if you wanted to switch it up, you just shake it, and I don't know what sort of magic they had under that stuff. It was this gray magnetic stuff. It would just clear the slate. So when the world does that people they feel free enough, or take chances, or so that was kind of my chance to do that.
Yeah. And so you had been in Gainesville for how long now?
A while. So my dad, who was a teacher in Brooklyn for close to 25 years, go figure, got tired of commuting 110 miles a day to and from work. And so back in the late 80s, he decided to move his family. And that's the first time I moved to Florida. My brother and sister and I all had different reactions to moving like that, because that is a culture shift, to go from New York to North Central Florida, where everyone's nice.
It's country.
And so my brother really didn't take to it at all. My sister took to it completely, and I was somewhere in the middle. And so like I could go along to get along, but I always wanted to get out. And so like I tried to move out of Gainesville at least 3 times before it finally stuck. And that's how I ended up going to college in Philadelphia. But then after college, I completely boomeranged back and ended up staying with my family for a while. And then I moved back to Philly again, and then back to Gainesville. Gainesville has this weird gravitational pull. Anyone who lives here knows about it. They just don't articulate it. Like, but yeah, so
That's it's funny because that's what I hear about Tallahassee too. And it's like, what is it about these towns?
it's like,
Small
yeah,
city town.
it's like the Godfather 3. They keep pulling me back in.
So then you obviously wanted to get into theater, and you learned acting. Like you said, you were trained.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I came to theater by way of film. My first forays into college, all I wanted to do was go to film school because I just wanted to get my hands on cameras and make movies. I spent like ages like 14 to 18 just running around with my family and friends with video cameras, like making stupid movies. I still have a library of stuff that I've subjected far too many loved ones to, and finally learned not to subject my current wife to. And ironically, she would probably enjoy it the most. But I was obsessed with movies. And then when I figured out that like film school might not be the way to go, and that was one part because like film school wasn't the answer I thought it was. And then it was also like, I kind of felt like I had already studied myself. And so I was so active as a performer in high school. I was on the debating team. I was a debate nerd. You have your band nerds and your theater kids. I was on the forensics team. So I was ironically doing TED Talks before there were TED Talks. Like, so see if this sounds familiar. I wrote speeches that were about 10 minutes long, that had to be well researched, and had to be about like relevant current events topics. Like, so
Yeah.
and I was winning like national tournaments at that, like while I was in high school. And when I was the first time I was living in Philadelphia, I felt like I'd gotten away from that too much, and that's when I got into the study of acting. I found a local agent, got little bits of work doing that, and then that was even before I went back to school for it. So when it came time to go back to college, I was kind of looking at what to do, and that's why I wanted to be in front of people again. I wanted to actually like emote and do things and all of that. So, and then that other things happened from there. But yeah.
Oh yeah. And so, eventually going into events, did you like, how did it work out where eventually you started doing TEDx talks? Like,
so that started before I founded the company, actually. So that is because of my wife. There's a local organization in Gainesville called Leadership Gainesville. It's kind of like a gathering of professionals and business owners, and they just sort of talk about like best practice and local politics and things like that. And they've been going on. I think they're more than 50 years old at this point. Like, and every class like has a number associated with it. So it's like LG 47, LG 50.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Same thing in Tallahassee.
Yeah, and so
it's LG over there, so it's LT over here, and then you hear,
right,
everyone cheering their class numbers. Obviously, I have not been.
And there's a whole like subculture to it. And so my wife was in 2019's class, or maybe it was 2018. It was 18 or 19, and their capstone project for that year was the first TEDx Gainesville. So they're like, we're going to do a TEDx event, and so they're like, I'll do finance, I'll do marketing, I'll do this. They get to my wife, and she's like, just talk to my husband. He's in theater. He'll help. Like, and they wanted to do everything. Oh my God. It was like, and then we'll have a pony and we'll have Jumbotrons. And I'm like, oh my God, guys, you have to stop. Like, bring it in. I love the enthusiasm. Bring it in. But that first year, I was essentially stage manager. Where like I was the one like pointing at things and solving problems and walking the cast through and stuff like that. And by the second year, I was co-organizing, and that second year is when I started coaching the speakers. And then by the third year, I had assumed the license, and now we're working on our fifth one. So yeah. So I don't know if there's another one that organizes and also coaches the speakers. Like from what I am told, that's a lot. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes in some cases, people get their own speakers and they pay and all of that. Speaker coaches, they pay to prep for the talk. So
yeah, there's
very
every
generous.
event. Absolutely, yeah. Every event's a little bit different. They all handle that a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's exciting. And obviously, we've partnered up together to help support this year's event and make sure that I share this and that people see. This is like pretty much the TEDx Gainesville page, and it leads to
Yeah.
tickets and events page. It's great. You made it easy for everyone.
Yeah, that's really a
official
credit to my.
page.
Yeah, that's really a credit to my co-organizer, Mike Langiri. He's the one who pretty much designed that page. So yeah, and that's us from the official TED page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And then for those who are looking, because we are accepting sponsorships, so for anyone that the rates are actually reasonably good considering the exposure that you guys get.
Yeah, there's the I mean this is the artist in me that's always a little uncomfortable talking about what they do, but so TEDx Gainesville has been very good about, and also I have to caveat this where like I just set him up and knock him down, and so like the performance of the speeches afterwards, I no influence over. But I'm pretty proud to say that 2023 we had one of the top rated or top viewed talks of that year. I think it was like number 15 or 16. Several of our talks have gone into like 200,000 and 300,000 views. Yeah, we've had a lot of like really good viral results. And
Yeah.
so
Don't forget the ones that got millions.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, he does have speakers that got millions of views.
And that is like I said, I don't know what they do. I don't know if they have market. Like I don't know what they do. All I know is that like they just get online and they explode.
Yeah.
So the benefit to anyone who wants to sponsor the event is that there's a sponsor placard. Your logo gets put on all the videos. It's just like standard. So and they get viewed all over the place. So.
Well, and then the other thing is it's put on the actual main channel of TEDx, and the main channel has 45. It's definitely over 40 million subscribers. So like chances are high to get exposure on that.
Yeah,
platform.
and then the experience for sponsors looking, not just mine, not just the event I'm doing, but anyone anywhere looking to sponsor a TEDx event, it's definitely a quality over quantity thing in a lot of ways too, because you're getting a direct line to the people speaking there, who tend to be interesting people doing interesting things, who may need the type of help that your company offers, and then all of the people who would be interested in those people, who are usually way better candidates to talk to you about what you do than just flat numbers. And so this is sometimes like when I'm trying to promote the event to people, and I get marketers and they ask the typical marketing questions, like sometimes the raw numbers look a little weird, but it's like it's apples and oranges. And so
right. Yeah, I mean the topics they're varied, and you had mentioned too when I talked to you in other conversations, you have to curate hundreds of applications really to narrow down on TEDx criteria.
Yeah, and so when you're a TEDx organizer, people find you because TED, kind of on purpose, and this isn't meant as like a complaint or anything, they're doing this with a specific aim in mind. There's no standard way that people get selected into a TEDx event. There are things that have evolved that TED itself has opinions about, and so they're like for example, TEDx Gainesville, for a lot of our years we would do like half local, half out of state speakers, and we would pretty much do what they call, what was their phrase for it? It was some fancy term, but it was just applications. Like something curation or indirect curation. I forget what the actual term is.
Maybe vetting?
What?
Is there vetting, or is it that's a different
term? So what our process was, and this is probably more complicated than other teams use, but we would get about between 2 and 250 applications in a given year. And then our head of curation, which is something my co-organizer did many years, and we've changed the process a little bit this year, but sort through all of them. And then like, first we're like, okay, who are the definite no's? So like, and these are the people who like don't follow directions, don't have videos, don't have like, they're just not right. And it's not an insult to them. Like they might not be right for the TED platform. You know, they might not understand the assignment. They might just be weird. So who are we definitely not asking back? Okay, so that usually weeds out about half. And then we would turn it over to like, we would have this huge list of things that the head of curation is like, all right, now these people are definitely not right. And then at that point, then it gets turned over to the larger team, and then we would assign everybody a score, and we would try and take our names off it so that we could just turn it into math. And whoever had the highest scores would be the people we would ask. And then we would just go down the line if anybody was busy or couldn't confirm or things like that. And then once we had that list, and then I would call everyone and be like Publishers Clearinghouse, where they would just like be really happy. It's some of the best parts of doing the events, to be honest, giving people that good news. But I frankly don't know how other events do it because I haven't been, on their team or behind those scenes. But TED actually doesn't like that because in their opinion, it turns it into like people using it as a platform and people trying to sell books and things like that. There is an argument to be made for that. I have varying opinions for and against it. I think what TED wants you to do is to like reach out and ask people and all this other stuff. And yeah, I can get into that there. Yeah.
No, but yeah, it's great because now running into, you said your 5th year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you made a lot of great connections and people have reached out to you.
Yes.
So like, when did you start? Like, you probably, knowing the person that you are, you probably helped people perfect how they presented, right? And I know you've had cases where somebody really has issues with public speaking, or maybe there's some things that just need to be adjusted. Like, did you kind of just volunteer that, or did someone ask you to also include that as part of it?
That's an interesting question, because like that you're reminding me that like way back, even when I was on the debating team in high school, that was a huge part of our culture as a team. And this was not like 10 kids. This was like 40, 50 kids all competing, making it to like state and nationals. Like we were like this little scrappy army because we were the only ones in North Florida who were competing at the level of like all the kids in South Florida, who were like, it was like such a Bad News Bears kind of movie experience, because like we're the scrappy people who can do, and like they're like the really refined ones. They're so polished, and we would just scrappy do our way through our events. But like part of competing, and I think part of being that competitive, was the fact that we were always critiquing our performances. And so I was always practicing in front of like friends, teammates, my coach. They were always practicing in front of me. We were always just fine tuning. And so like, even from a young age, I was doing that. When I was in college, I started directing plays. And that's just, I think Kevin Smith said it. He's like, he just got into directing because he just had a strong opinion, and it was enough for people to trust him.
That's great.
And so like, and it's one of those things where like people don't understand. It's like, yeah, you have to have an eye for it and things like that. And, aesthetics, you learn as you go, but like a lot of it is just understanding from an objective point of view, what's hitting, what's not hitting. And and then just sort of everything's an experiment. And so like you give some advice and then you go, does that work? Yes, no, do it again. Yeah.
I think it's a lot of fun. I have only got a small taste of it when I had to be part of a pitch contest with a team in college, and we actually got, and they asked me to do it a couple times. There was a few crazy stories where the projector stopped working, and I was like, and then
I have a
you've heard all the stories, And then, there was another time where we killed it and we won the presentation, but not the actual contest. But, we did it. But it was a lot of fun. And I do like that experience. Nowadays, I don't know how easy it is for kids to learn to actually give constructive feedback to one another. So it's nice that you said when you were younger and you guys gave each other.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a larger conversation about these days. But it is a very important skill, and something I've always prided myself on is that I am a critique masochist. If I wanted compliments of what I was doing, I would ask my mom. I want to know where it's falling down, where it's not working, what you're not understanding, because I'm not going to get any better unless you tear this thing apart. I keep thinking about this one comic book I read where this one supervillain was constantly, literally killed and cloned and evolved until he was just indestructible. And so that's kind of how I approach anything I do if I'm doing it myself. And I try and supportively and gently and with all the love and support that one can offer as a coach. It's what I try and do for anyone I work with, because it is a very it's exciting, but there's also a lot, public speaking is one of the largest fears after spiders and death itself.
Flying. Seriously. Yeah. Everyone is afraid of it.
Yeah. And so and I've gotten up there with everything I've done and made mistakes, blanked, had to cover for myself, just because once you're in front of an audience, you've got the spotlight on you, the literal spotlight's on you, your brain blanks. It's just human nature. And so, you've got to be as good as you possibly can just to be competitive.
And I'd hate to wrap it up already because this time has flown by, and I know I have more questions, but maybe we should have a part 2. But
definitely.
Because many questions have come up, and I'm really excited because you have some other opportunities coming up actually for those who are interested in exploring learning how to speak, perfect their craft, maybe just learn how to present themselves better. You have some things called, there's this thing, you're now president of Event Incubator.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So Event Incubator came out of my 2 other board members. We all produce our own events and our own style of events. So David does Comic-Cons, and Layla does big arts festivals, and I've been doing TEDx for a while. And so we're all I'm sure there's other people with this weird thing in their brain. Let's help them so that they don't have the same problems that we have had, and we can sort of ease that learning curve a little bit. So that's where that came from. So, and then the other thing is that now that we've got it, it's the business entity that's doing all of the, it's literally signing the checks on behalf of the TEDx event I'm using, which a lot of other TEDx organizers end up doing. They end up forming nonprofits and things like that, just so that they have an entity that can actually sign the checks, because it's, otherwise, how are you paying for the venue? How are you doing this and that? And that comes up all over the place. So yeah, if you're doing a speaker showcase, a pitching event, your own TEDx thing, that's literally why we founded Event Incubator, so that you have a helping hand in getting that done, and a set of tools to do it with.
Awesome. And it's funny because somebody just commented just to say that they did just watch, and somehow it did not go on my radar. So Tammy, thank you for mentioning this. She just watched her first TEDx at FSU. I was like, okay, I did not hear anything about this.
Oh, nice.
The organizers, you got to let the community know. I would have loved to have been there. But
yeah.
But one thing I also wanted to ask you, what's your favorite part? Because you do all I mean, with events, you have to do so much. And then also owning your business and consulting and coaching. Like, what's your favorite aspect of the whole business?
Working with the speakers, the coaching aspect. First of all, I get to meet and make connections with people I would have no business doing. Like last year, I was working with a Harvard professor, a guy who runs an AI startup.
Awesome.
Just like seriously impressive people who who are, you know, who I can help. And that's the other thing where it's like, you know, it's been very validating of my skill sets, because
Yeah.
like, you know, and this is a larger conversation about like, you know, where do you find your place as a creative person, artist, all this other stuff. And so that was a breakthrough for me where it's like, no, this is valuable to people, and it can actually very much help them, especially in today's environment where it's not enough just to be good at your job or, you know, skilled in something. You have to be the face of your company. You have to talk about your stuff. You have to be articulate and land and be branded and all this other stuff. And that's where the public speaking piece comes in. And yeah, that's been the most exciting piece about it, because now I have friends from all over the country, and you know, I could call them up at any time and like talk to them about new opportunities or just, you know, talk shop, and they'd all be game for it. So that's been the bit, and I love all of it. Like it comes from my interest in movies, where I wanted to sort of understand every way in which the machine is made, and because the whole is so cool. And so I've just sort of taken that mindset everywhere else. But yeah, by and far the performance piece is if I had to choose just one thing to do, it would be that. So
I love that, because there's not that many who, I mean, there may be the ones who are out there with huge social media followings, but like not many local, not many North Florida that really focuses on this. So it's really cool to have met you. Shout out to David. Like that's how we met, through
yeah.
Infinity Con, and then he introduced us, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I'm really excited about what you're going to be doing with the event Incubator. And I have to give you also a nice shout out for helping us at Domi, because I'm a board member at Domi, with the recent Domi Awards. Yeah, you really came through. You really helped us level up the event, being the MC there for Domi Awards, and highly recommend getting a consultation session with Thomas. And just really excited for what you're going to be doing for this year's TEDx Gainesville.
Yeah, so that's going to be really cool. The venue we'll be at, there's a lot of possibilities there. And then TEDx Gainesville was founded on the idea of sort of doing the event, learning and growing as much as you can, and then giving others the opportunity to learn and grow as well. And so there's a lot of opportunities for that are evolving there. And then, yeah, so we should do a part 2, because like the whole thing about the and what they how for people, because like people go and they're like, you do all of this work for nothing, because that's the thing, nobody's paid to do a TEDx event, it's all volunteer. But the benefits to doing that are many, and it's why I've done it for so long. Yeah, so it's worth a second. It's worth a larger conversation.
Oh yeah, and there's so much activity going on around Ocala, Gainesville, Alachua. There's a lot of growth with tech companies, and like you mentioned, you have been speaking to folks in tech and stuff. Like a lot of the times, these experts that have so much information in their minds overcomplicate what they have to say.
Yes, yeah, and that's the thing. Yes, and so like one of the biggest challenges, and this is something I had an opportunity to speak actually at TEDx Ocala in November, and one of the other speakers, I remember we were talking at one of our receptions, and he was like, I could stand up and do like a 2-hour talk all day long. I can do it in my sleep. I can do it without any prep. This killed me, because the unique challenge to a TED event, and it's why I laugh when people are like, I don't need a coach. Yeah, I guess Michael Jordan never needed a coach either. And it's because you have to distill it down, not just once or twice or even 3 times. You have to know exactly what the most important things you're talking about are. I personally had to go through it. I spent probably about 100 hours putting my talk together, and a lot of that time was just knowing what exactly was the only thing that should make the stage, because you only have 10, maybe 15 minutes. And attention spans are getting shorter all the time. They're suggesting shorter and shorter run times all the time. And so anytime you're talking to someone on stage, you have to earn your place in their mind every minute you're on stage. And that is a not just a skill, it is a process that you have to always just sort of boil it out and purify it and purify it and purify it until you're getting just what's best.
That's awesome. That's a great way to conclude, really. And we will definitely do a part 2. We could always do something either, right before or even after the fact, and just talk about your experience with that. But even as you're about to launch some things, because, we will partner with you at DOMI to have you as a guest speaker to help you promote your event incubator program.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of business owners and even nonprofit executives hop on the cohorts every spring and fall, and they need advice on this and even how to present themselves and speak.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for you. And so I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. Hang on for a second and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much, guys, for catching this episode. Thank you, Thomas, for doing this.
My pleasure.
Will stay tuned for part 2.